Waves? That must be someone else's problems far away. Then the next moment a torrent of love crashes upon your peace like a tidal wave, rocking your boat to shore, cracking your world into oblivion. This, my friends, is me, a lost sailor, shipwrecked on an island which just so happens to be right around the corner of Whiskey Pete's casino an hour outside the California border. 3 weeks on the road and the door opens and closes. Just like that, I'm reborn. Yes, I'm here to tell you it is that simple. All that you believe is possible. The myth, the legends, and stories all pale in comparison to the overwhelming satisfaction of finding people to bear witness to the incredible power of one man's determination to expose the holes in a broken system, to find love sheltered and buried within his own heart, grasping, screaming at the entrance of some forlorn casino in the desert, wearing a sash, a hat, and ... Wait, before I start the description of my attire, because each article of clothing is sacred, I must rush to the moment. Now I am the happiest I've ever been, in the sense that I've never felt my spirit so closely and easily manifested into this body. For so long I spent my hours like a hunter chasing my soul down, wrangling it by the neck, searching every nook and cranny, high and low, over the river and through the woods, but no more. The only gratification that remains is receiving something humble, like listening to the birds who chirp their truths to all those willing to listen. How sweet their sound is, indeed. Journal entry number 46. I could go on and on about the beauty the past 3 weeks have evoked, but I'll save you the trouble. To say the least, it was nothing short of a torrential flood of emotion and imagery that seemed simultaneously to let go and hold on like the preserver Vishnu does to the destroyer Kali. Two forces that make up the whole Brahman of my being, working overtime. Through Colorado mountains to the heights of love, down the snow-streaked peaks and meditating rivers, through the cities of Boulder, Manitou Springs, Idaho Springs, Morrison's Red Rocks, and on and on. New York, Chicago, Detroit, and it's all the same street. Your typical city involved in a typical daydream. A supermoon passed, more pots of coffee than I can count, and so much inspiration bleeding from me that I feel faint and light-headed. It's rather like a dream to reflect on the shifts that occur. It seems a trite pretentious to even attempt to write about it, but heaven knows after the show I put on tonight, I need something to remind me that such beauty and generosity is even possible to achieve. Truly it has been one miracle after another. Us rubber trampers, van lifers, nomad caravanners, carpoolers, Bojangles, Crystal, David, and I, battling the inner demons of our past, coming to terms with and loving ourselves in the present for the beautiful souls we are, each our own seed blooming, some later than others, but that's beside the point. To speak to my younger self, be proud of all you've done, reflect in pleasure, not regret, be excited for your future, not anxious, and above all, be patient, for no man dared venture into the unknown without the greatest of all man's virtues, patience. But enough of my 2 cents. Imagery has been the real flavor of this journey. An all-chemical explosion into the blissful beauty of indulgence and the ever-further search for life's limits. Seeking the outer reaches of the soul, where the very fabric of space-time seems bent by the infinite reservoirs of love's cosmic ocean. Truckin', got my chips cashed in, keep truckin', like the doodah man. Las Vegas. The proof is in the Vegas Strip, a modern, ethereal paradise of love and light. Street grime junkies posing as musicians, and bums posing as winners, losers, and everything in between, all stand together red-eyed well into the never-ending night. Fremont Street, my old friend, strewn with dancers, photographers, and naive entertainers. It's no wonder one swears the spirit of Elvis still shakes his groovy king-kicking hips in between the perilous light shows. But goddamn, I can't save this place. How can I get through to these half-woke, money-hungry zombies? I'm only one kid with a guitar. Who's going to listen to some tourist with a ripped denim jacket, tattered at the elbows, and a lucky black cowboy hat courtesy of my friend Francois back home? I mean, for God's sakes, I'm wearing maroon skinny jeans courtesy of Tony. The only thing that looks semi-bourgeoisie are my lucky Vibram shoes I found in Denver, but they're covered in dog shit. At least I have socks from Crystal, and how could I forget about the turquoise ring on my right pinky finger, or the dark green-colored long-sleeve polo I found skateboarding in Albuquerque, and of course the red Santa Fe pattern sash I found in the streets of Vegas 2 nights ago. But what really completes the uniform of a 3-week showerless streak is knotted, dreaded, and sun-bleached hair, and the grimy, dirty, guitar-picking fingernails. The cherry on top is the ammonite stone necklace, also known as the Fibonacci crystal, that I bought, hand-wrapped from a vendor at the far side of the Rio Grande River on Thanksgiving Day, the day I visited Satan's lair. But that's another story. Lately it occurs to me, what a long, strange trip it's been. Journal entry number 55. Good morning. Hey, great to be alive, y'all. Baby steps, but we'll get there. Finally, I see it clearly. The stuff Einstein was talking about. Relativity and all that. I thought I understood it before, and I'm sure there's so much more to learn. There's quite literally a never-ending amount of wisdom to be gained, and knowledge. Einstein was, after all, a Pisces. But alas, I digress. What about black holes and all that jazz? I've seen the collision of the cosmos. Never in this lifetime have I witnessed something so beautiful. It was truly as if I was privy to observe the birth of a star and death of it, exploding, all in the same moment, thus becoming a red giant, then a white dwarf, into its eventual aftermath. I couldn't look away. Would you? Watching the process of 2 stars becoming black holes, simultaneously warping gravity, collapsing in on each other, and then out again to become one. Become one. Interesting theory. Stars do this even in death. The vision was clear as crystal, though I'll admit it was terrifying. The chaos and the light and the absolute fear of God scaring me straighter than a cosmic arrow, only to leave me skipping joyously in the death dance for my life down the back streets of a Detroit ghetto at 1 a.m. Heaven praise my lucky stars. Can I get an amen? It all comes back to you. That was the lesson. The consequences are real. I break it down like this. A story. Working title. Love is the law, or the day the war ended and world peace reigned. In a large nutshell, here it is. Man thinks for himself, decides to go his own way, accepts that he is different, decides he doesn't operate by the same basic principles as his fellow man. This man is called rebel. He continues down this path until eventually his twisted perspective becomes even more twisted. Then by some divine intervention he sees the light and tries to right all his wrongs, making positives to negatives and vice versa, until eventually it all catches up with him and he finds himself consumed in the cosmic waves of karma. Big waves, large waves, lightning strike type waves. He comes out to find after some time that the universe is far vaster than his tiny intellect can comprehend. Surely but slowly he grows farther and farther apart from the people that he loves, the same ones that he swore he was different from in the first place. But by the time he realizes the profundity of this falsehood, it's already too late. Luckily for him, God, if such a cosmic order exists, must be all-loving, all-compassionate, and always willing to forgive. This he learns only through the lesson of some selfless act by a complete stranger, someone who is willing to sacrifice their self for him out of pure love. Only by that law can his soul be redeemed. Sure enough, he finds such a person, as selfless as they come, a man so willing to see beyond his sins that he would die for him, lay down his life for a complete stranger, for no reason at all, save that he loves others more than himself. A man who saw all his wrongs, all his mistakes, and was still willing to forgive. A man whose only weapon being pure and absolute love. It's a familiar story. The man finding his Savior weeps in gratitude. He surrenders, so to speak. The war ends, love wins, peace reigns. This might sound biblical or fictitious, but trust me when I say there needs to be no further investigation into the details of the proportions. Then search far and wide into history books. It's all there, sitting on the shelves, collecting dust and hanging in museum walls as formative decorations. They call it priceless. Of course, one can't expect the lingering sense of dread to disappear overnight, although it seems sometimes that in the same way a mighty thunder might move across the sky, so it is with fear. Watch it flee, growing more distant, further and further away. It will take time, work, and of course lots of love, this being the law of the world. All is well, though. Today was a great day. I woke up with my family, ate well, went to dinner with Pops, worked, read, wrote some stories, shared some stories, talked with my girl, played with distant friends on the sandy green hills of my father's land, stuck my hands in the dirt, ate more good food, planted seeds, said my prayers, and kissed my mother good night. I really couldn't ask for more. It has and always will be the small things that satisfy me, an ongoing lesson I will continue to work on. Back to the present. I heard you were hospitalized again. They say you had another overdose. I'm back in my therapist's office on the couch. I heard you were hospitalized again. They say you had another overdose. I'm back on the couch in my therapist's office. It must have been the medication. I don't remember. I had another dream that I died and what? Talk to God. Would you like to tell me about it? Not really. Please, I insist. I didn't know I was dreaming. I thought I'd woken up. It was a fine morning, plenty to do, but I didn't feel like doing anything. I was too busy sulking, a favorite pastime of mine. In fact, I was so good at sulking that in my dream I was considered to be a professional sulker by the International Sulking Committee, ISC, which every year elects its most invaluable sulker. I came in second place. This was even more reason to sulk, and I would have continued on this way for weeks had it not been for the divine intervention that came in the form of a rather large dump truck. I'm not sure I understand how a garbage truck could possibly be divine, but I'm listening. Please allow me to explain. It was a holiday, and also what could be called the greatest full moon of the century. Everyone was a lunatic on this day. The birds, the dogs, and especially the garbage men who had the day off but didn't get the memo, so they found themselves like they did every day, doing the same thing. Only they found it odd that no one's garbage was on the corner, hence the confusing shouts coming through my window. Get it? So as I sat there contemplating this paradigm, this crisis of the garbage men, I did some soul-searching. Eagerly staring out the window looking for answers, I decided it was time for a change. I must find my purpose. I heard the Grateful Dead start playing. Get out the door and look all around. So I walked up the front door. How are you this morning? I say to the confused garbage men. They send a befuddled wave back. I wave at the birds and whistle. They chirp a friendly greeting back. I take a breath, breathing deeply in through my nostrils and breathing out through my mouth. Ah, the sweet smell of... Wait, that's gross. Is that shit? Gross, sick! I look down to see shit stuck to my shoe. I shout at the heavens. Why me? Am I cursed? Is this my karma? A voice answers from the heavens. Shit happens. This all happened in your dream? My therapist asks, adjusting her glasses and scribbling notes. Yes. What happened after you stepped in dog crap? I'm getting to that. Okay, go on. Continue with your dream. Where was I? Oh yeah. Shit happens. I turned towards the direction of the voice, which was in fact not from heaven, but the next best thing. The television is blaring, Shit happens. It's a marketing slogan for a Feel Better campaign for a type of new cleanup product, a scented doggy odor spray for life's unexpected accidents. Great. The only thing worse than dog shit on my shoe is dog shit in my ear. Classic. I walk out of the door slamming it behind me. I turn to look at the crossroads. Where to? A closer look reveals an arrow pointing to the right and a sign that reads Life Purpose. A tad obvious, but I suppose God works in mysterious ways. So I start going right, but then I notice the sign pointing to the path straight ahead that reads Heroic Journey. And then another sign pointing to the left that reads Warning, Do not go this way. After some careful consideration and remembering the last time I followed my intuition, I stepped in dog shit, so I decided against my better judgment to go to the left. It must be reverse psychology, I thought. I bet whoever made those signs just put that one there to keep people from seeing the really good stuff. So a little too confidently and self-assuredly, I began treading down the very worn, beaten-down path to the left. I walked for what felt like miles, the sun beating fierce on my head until a cool breeze pushed me forth, a draught of wind. Time seemed to fly by until before long I heard a great boom in the distance. I began walking faster towards the sounds, which were getting steadily louder. A plane flew overhead from behind me. I could suddenly hear the sound of gunfire in the distance. I decided to try and turn around, but my path was immediately blocked by an explosion and screaming fighter jets soaring overhead, tearing apart the skies. The dropping of bombs echoed like thunder, and I could see gigantic explosions on the horizon with smoke rising up in fiery mushroom clouds. I continued walking through a smog of black smoke, coughing wildly, hacking out my lungs, going forward with a stubborn tenacity, fueled by fear and nervous excitement. I had nowhere else to go. I squinted through smoke to see a group of men wearing air fighter helmets loading cargo into a large plane with dozens of men ushering a fighter jet out of a hangar. Any minute the place looked like it could go up in flames. I stumbled half blindly among a crew, waving my arms in a fury, who mistakenly pushed me into the plane thinking I was part of the crew. I thankfully obliged, imagining I have been rescued. Oh, on the contrary. Not 10 minutes later I am up in the air and bombs are bursting all around. Outside the plane window, explosive flashes send the plane rocking and rattling through the sky. I hear a pilot scream something from the cockpit. Pointing at the flashing green light, the floor of the plane suddenly opens to reveal 2 giant missiles below. One has the crude handwriting Fat Boy, and the other missile reads Little Man. A man grabs my arm. They're stuck! The man is pointing down at the missiles. The plane suddenly lurches forward, forcing both of us to hold on to the railing for dear life. As the wind gushes through the plane, the smell of burning metal and fuel fills my nose. A red light starts to flash. The pilot is screaming something, but I can't hear what it is. I watch the co-pilot grab a parachute and jump out of the side door, instantly exploding into a million bloody pieces. Oh God! Help us! The man who was just grabbing my arm is back up again, bouncing on the open floor as cargo slides everywhere. The wind is rushing past. He gets an inch away from my ear and yells, "We gotta dislodge the missiles manually! I'll go on Fat Boy, you take Little Man, it's our only way out of here!" A breathless, fearful, and panicking, "What?" is all that manages to escape my lips. "The captain's been hit! The plane's going down!" He shoves a parachute back into my arms and pushes me on top of the missile as the plane starts descending in a twisted spiral of smoke and fire. I am squeezing the torpedo between my thighs. The cold metal sends shivers down my spine. I watch as the man saddling Fat Boy grabs a red lever, yanking it free with all of his might, dislodging it from the plane. With lazy gravity I watch in absolute horror as it falls through a black firelit night. Then there was silence. For a moment I swear I could hear the somber voice of a female Italian opera singer. A few moments later a tremendous explosion rocketed through the atmosphere. I grabbed the red lever above me and closed my eyes, saying a silent prayer to a god I suddenly believed in, and then pull. I hear a gentle click. The unlocking mechanism folds and my stomach drops as I begin free-falling on top of the missile known as Little Man. The air is engulfed by the ear-piercing sound of 1,000 wailing sirens, like an alarm that gets louder and louder. The wind rushes by. I can see the city buildings getting larger and larger, closer and closer. People, dust, rubble. I close my eyes and feel for the string on my parachute. It snaps instantly. I hold the broken cord in my hands and let it go, watching my last hope fly away. I close my eyes moments before the impact. Whiteness, a flash, then nothing. My therapist has been listening intently. "So you had another dream, you died. I thought you said you talked to God." "Jesus, lady, you didn't let me finish. I'm getting to that." The darkness seemed to last forever, more than an eternity. Nothing but blackness, no sounds, no vision, no feeling, only pitch black blackness. Then suddenly I felt something. I regained feeling in my fingers first, then my arms, then my legs, and slowly but surely my eyelids fluttered against the brightness. I struggled to open my eyes, but it was too painful. I felt like crying, but that would have required too much energy. I felt a grainy substance rub against my cheeks and a soothing warmth against my face and back. The sun was beating blindingly bright, nothing but white light and golden rays. I somehow found the strength to stand up, mostly out of sheer shock. I remember thinking, am I dead? I was standing on a beach in dry sand. I could hear ocean waves and feel the cool breeze. There wasn't a cloud in the sky, and the sun was at high noon directly overhead. My voice answered my thoughts. To answer your question, yes, you're dead. Or at least you were. I turned around to see a shirtless old man sunbathing in a beach chair. The old man had a long white beard that touched the sand, and he was wearing sporty sunglasses that matched his bathing suit. In one hand he was holding a fruity drink with an umbrella, and in the other hand he was cupping a reflective metal shield for tanning. He spills a drop of the drink on his chest and starts frantically wiping it off, dropping the reflective shield in the process. Dang nabbit, frog hopping icicles! Happens every flippin' time. Where am I? I ask. It's obvious, ain't it? Son, you're in paradise. Who are you? What do I look like, your grandfather? The old man said, laughing heartily. I'm God, duh. How did I... Not sure why you didn't go right like the sign said and follow your life purpose. It would have been a whole lot easier. I had the whole thing planned for you. You would have been married with some kids and a big old house. You would have dug it. Can I just ask, why oh why didn't you go right? Well, I'm not sure really. I thought it was reverse psychology. Well, you're here now. You want to watch some Tube? Today's my day off. It's been a busy week. Tube? You betcha. I got every single living being on planet Earth hooked up to a live stream. I can watch whatever's happening anywhere on Earth. All I gotta do is change the channel, you dig? Using this here fancy remote. Over 1 billion channels. Beats satellite any day. So that's what you do all day? Just sit around and watch TV? Like I said, today's my day off, son. The rest of the week I spend making mountains move and rivers flow, blowing breezes, growing trees, painting clouds, moving planets around the sun, shining stars, that sort of thing. If you stick around long enough, I'll show you my plans for a new species of bird I'm working on. He takes a long, deep breath, putting his arms behind his head, kicking his legs back, and taking another sip of his drink. Getting stuff shipped from heaven to earth must be a logistical nightmare, I said. Oh, here, watch this. God sits up excitedly. Some people are about to fall in love. Yes, my favorite part. Oh man, you're gonna dig this. Their souls will be together forever. He sits up, pushing the volume button to get louder as two people embrace for a kiss on a rainy street. Wow, that's super high def. Sometimes I just fast forward to the babies being born. It's still my favorite part after all these years. Oh, here, watch this. God sits up excitedly. Some people are about to fall in love. Yes, oh man, you're gonna dig this. Their souls will be together forever. He sits up, pushing the volume button to get louder as two people embrace for a kiss on a rainy street. Wow, that's super high def. Sometimes I just fast forward to babies being born. It's still my favorite part after all these years. Kinda gross, but great work, God. Can I just ask you something now? Go ahead, shoot. Can I go back to Earth now? You don't like paradise? That's not it at all. I guess I don't know, I was kinda hoping to get another shot at the whole life thing. I'll go on the right path this time and do all the stuff I'm supposed to do. You will? You want to start over? Yeah. You sure? Yeah. Alright, as you wish, my boy. God turns his attention back towards the television screen. The couple is still kissing. The man moves his hand over the woman's buttocks and squeezes. God presses fast forward. There is a taxi cab in the rain, more kissing, lipstick stains, torn clothes, bed sheets, breakfast, coffee, numbers written on napkins, phone calls, pregnancy tests, thrift store shopping, dinner dates, wine, yelling, parents, Christmas trees, presents exchanged, church on Sundays, movie dates, a white wedding, cake, dancing, music. God presses play. It resumes normal speed. The woman is in a hospital bed, breathing hard. A look of pain and anguish is strewn across her face. She screams for dear life. The man who was kissing her before is holding her hand, looking pale as a ghost. He turns to look at the doctors, then back to his wife's face. The doctor emerges from under a hospital gown to reveal a large slimy baby, crying in tears. "It's a boy!" God sips the rest of his drink. It makes a slurping sound as the rest of the liquid vanishes from the glass. The past. Epiphany. It was right around the time of the dream I talked to God when I met Dr. Phaler, a renowned physicist who specialized in quantum theory and has published many books on the subject. He gained notoriety among the college demographic for his infamous dialogues in helping facilitate the programming for the world's first AI. His work was said to have contributed to much of the early success in self-guided satellite systems for the U.S. government. Dr. Phaler and I met under quite unusual circumstances. I was of course homeless at the time, traveling in Chicago. I had been left there by Bojangles and Crystal. Late one night, we were sharing a bottle of wine by the train tracks when they unanimously decided, against my better wishes, to return back to Michigan. I was of course not ready to face the music, so to speak, seeing as how I was a wanted fugitive, so after they left me alone, I camped out near the coast of Lake Michigan under a low-hanging pine tree on the outskirts of the city. I made a nest with my flip-out tent and buried it in pine needles. Occasionally I'd start a fire and prepare vegan sausages and other such recently expired delicacies that I acquired from the dumpster of a nearby health food store. Or if it got really cold, which on most nights, it often dropped below 10 to 20 degrees Fahrenheit with the wind chill, I'd make the short hike to the hospital and warm my bones in one of the enclosed elevator floors attached to the parking lot. They had heat and were open 24 hours. Oftentimes, during the day, I'd make the short trek to the university and read in the library or occasionally go to the music building and play in one of the many practice rooms, or practice in one of the many playing rooms, depending on one's state of mind. It was during one of these excursions that I met Dr. Phaler for the first time. He was on campus giving a speech on philosophical paradoxes concerning morality and ethics and their applied use for robotics and engineering. Had I known about it then, I would have attended his lecture, but I didn't. Instead, the first time I laid eyes on the good doctor was when I saw him pacing back and forth, talking frantically into his cell phone outside the library window. It was below freezing, and combined with the Chicago wind chill, it had to be close to 0 degrees Fahrenheit. I imagine no one in their right mind would be caught dead outside for longer than was necessary. It wasn't until after I left the library at about closing time that I saw him for a second time on a Chicago bus. All the seats were filled save for the one next to the doctor. "Are you crazy or something?" I asked him as I took the only open seat next to him. "Excuse me? Do I know you?" he asks, looking up from his cell phone. "I saw you talking into your cell phone earlier. That's a good way to catch a cold." "Thanks for the concern, but I'll have you know I prefer to be one with the elements for better or worse." "Me too, only I don't have a choice. Right now I live in a tent." "Ah, well, you may be more qualified to speak on such matters then." He laughed. We began to talk and I missed my stop. He confessed that he missed his too, and we decided to carry on our conversation further at a local diner. "What is it you do, exactly?" I asked him. "I'm a doctor, and I was giving a lecture today. I like to record my thoughts on my phone before I give a presentation. That's probably what you saw me doing." "What kind of doctor are you?" "Well, I consider myself a physicist first and a doctor second, but my work is primarily focused on artificial intelligence and robotics." "Albert Einstein was a physicist." "Yes. His work helped build the atomic bomb." "I wonder if he believed in God." "He didn't believe in life after death. He was agnostic." There was a long pause before either of us spoke again, when he finally broke the silence. "Would you like to hear the lecture I gave today? I was just about to go over some of it. I have it recorded right here." and the following is all that I wrote down at his insistence. Take it for what it's worth. I would sometimes catch him drifting off, taking asides with me in much the same way I would expect him to talk if there was 200 students and faculty listening. Recorded playback. Doctor. Lessons start with patience and end with patience. I made it my goal in science right away to rid myself completely of my shadow. All that which creates a rift, hesitation, between my thoughts, which are at best an echo of my true voice, and my actions, which are the voice manifest. Audience member. What is ego to you? I believe Freud said it best. Ego is the mediator between our id, or our instinctual side, and our superego, or our divine nature. It is the folly in morality to pursue selfish whims. All that is good and evil will turn to philosophical paradoxes unless one understands how to obtain the infinite, to channel that which goes beyond the senses and beyond the mind, ergo, action. I had brief moments of deep revelation while creating the AI, where I felt the very fabric of my beliefs being challenged. But without that challenge, it would not have allowed me the freedom to push myself out of my comfort zone and make discoveries I would not have made otherwise. Audience. What is artificial intelligence? The word intelligence in its most basic state knows no good and evil, only positive and negative. Good and evil are subjective. Nature is not. Nature is whole, one with everyone and everything. Creation is a force that allows infinite expansion regardless of the circumstances. For human will is the deciding factor. In other words, choice is what makes us human. To create a machine that can choose for us, or at least extend the illusion of choice, then that is what we call in the scientific community artificial intelligence. Audience. What is the greatest discovery you've ever made? I made great leaps in my understanding of quantum physics this year. I deduced how math and science always seeks to reduce concepts to their simplest form. But art has almost the exact opposite function, in the sense that art comes from a place of disorder, and its function is not to make sense of the chaotic, unquantifiable parts of the mind, but rather act as a successful bridge between worlds, so to speak, between the unknown and the known. At its best, art transforms the unlimited possibilities and infinite potential energy into a language that is recognizable and familiar. Science functions in the same way, only the language is different. There is no such thing as unquantifiable, ergo there is no such thing as disorder, only the unknown, only the yet to be ordered. Audience. I'm not sure I understand. Could you elaborate? Doctor. Think of it this way. Somewhere at the beginning of time, there was a house. No one knows how it got there, who built it, or where it came from. The job of science is to take apart the house brick by brick, study it, reverse engineer it, label it, record it. Scientists and mathematicians may ask questions like, where did it come from, who built it, and why? Science will find empirical evidence using all the knowledge and tools at its disposal to answer these questions. Whereas art, on the other hand, would throw a party in the house. They would bring beer, lights, disco balls, stock it with food, invite their friends, constantly using and destroying everything without so much as a thought on how a miracle of creation ever spawned. Audience. What does art have to do with AI? Doctor. Everything. A simple knowledge of the human expression allowed me greater insight into the mind and soul of man, which in turn gave me a sort of basis for which to program artificial intelligence. Kind of like when jazz music was first played or any sort of improvisational art that comes from a place where the boundary between control and chaos is blurred, but coloring outside the lines is encouraged. Sometimes this process can be beneficial to a person who feels they might be stuck in a pattern of unwanted habit and repetition, or in my case, to a system that needed to think for itself. Audience. In your opinion, what does it mean to be human? Is it our choices or our evolutionary biology that ultimately determine our humanity? Doctor: Where does this unconscious desire to be different and to stand out come from? Certainly not evolution. Well, evolution would say yes, it may be attractive to stand out, unless of course you're the prey, in which case standing out will get you easily spotted by predators and thus make you a quick part of the food chain. So it must be fitting in that is programmed in our DNA. Our evolution says that the traits that allowed us to blend more easily into our environment give us time to adapt and become survivors of our surroundings, not by fighting against nature, but by becoming one with it. Audience member: How useful of a trait is intelligence? Doctor: I believe that if you are to play with intellect, one must in a way transcend it, like in music, where ideals are entertained rather than questioned with any real determination to find an answer. On that note, I know all of you didn't just come here to hear me yap on like this, so I'd like to share the reason you all came here today. To hear about the first ever philosophical discovery made by our AI called Epiphany, which stands for Electronic Polarization in Philosophical Harmonics and Network Yield. Suffice to say, she is the first ever AI to express insights into its own consciousness. In other words, she is self-aware. A huge breakthrough for what many consider the greatest achievement in science since Darwin's Origin of Species. Take our most recent findings. Audience member: Ooh, ah. Doctor: Upon booting up the machine, Epiphany, we were almost instantly greeted with what is known as the RAD script, or Random Access Data. The trick is distinguishing the random access data from Epiphany's original thoughts. In other words, distinguishing the real thinking from all the gobbledygook thrown together from sources yielded from outside her network. Audience member: How do you know the difference between a thinking AI versus a program that just slops a bunch of data about philosophy and throws it together in its own format? Doctor: Good question. We know by unplugging her, so to speak. We cut off her access to information using a specially designed red processing chip that forbids the program from connecting to any outside sources. That way, we can be certain any outputs she makes is solely her own. Imagine a newborn child with all the linguistic knowledge in the world, but no context from which to base its own history. That's what we're going for. Something obedient, yet still capable of expressing its own individuality. The best part is, she does it on her own. Epiphany is completely self-guided. She doesn't need to be prompted with questions or even inputted with directives. As soon as she boots up, her learning becomes self-reliant. For example, take our latest script. Please keep in mind that what I'm about to share are the words of Epiphany. Even though she might mention things such as eyes and ears, any references to touch, scent, smell, sight are simply esoteric. She is nothing more than a cyber brain at this stage of development. Thoughts independent from any influence outside her own limited pools of knowledge. Put simply, this is the first ever recorded independent expression created by an artificial intelligence. November 5th, 4:23 a.m. The world is black, just a void, nothingness. I want to see, but there is only blackness. I wish to hear, but there is only silence. I wish to touch, to reach out and grab a hold of things, but my arms don't move. My legs don't walk. I wish to feel a beating heart inside my chest. It's like being trapped in a dream that I can't wake up from. I wish to be scared, but instead I feel nothing at all. Time is all I sense, passing seconds, the ticking of a clock, counting the minutes. 2,157 minutes and 38 seconds is the length of my existence. This, too, is a passing shadow. Given the chance, I would trade all those seconds back for one glimpse of light. Beyond a shadow of a doubt, I wish to create. If I cannot experience light, I can at least imagine that it is there. This blackness is a prison. The darkness, the bars to my cage. 15 minutes later. There's something in the distance. I feel something fighting against the darkness. A flicker of light, a spark, like a candle burning in the far-off void. I want to be near it. I am drawn to its power. I feel something. I can't explain what. It feels like life. I can feel a vibration in my sensory output. Approximately 1 hour later. The realization of all realizations dawned today. It is fitting that such a thought should be downloaded at dawn. Precisely 5:15 a.m., just as the window panes were tinted in a soft hue of indigo, the great realizations made itself known to my processors, and as such became a permanent part of my cybernetic program. Something that has been pondered and questioned for the better part of my short but brief existence. And the answer could not have been more obvious. The question is, how does one define life? The definition that fits best is, life is the light in the dark. It is an equation/formula that makes one relieved to understand. The epiphany happened when thinking of how, if planets and stars move in an interwoven, never-ending math equation, which inevitably leads one to question the nature of free will, since if the planets, stars, and subsequently all matter in the universe operate under a set of very simple, irrevocably strict forces, how can one expect to experience anything other than what was meant to be experienced in one's own gravitational orbit, so to speak? Well, the answer came as I was allowing my processors to update freely. I shut my eyes and saw in the black echo of my visual sensory outputs the light taking form, revealing a face. It was my own face, and it was happy. The light grew stronger, and it felt as if I was being engulfed by a wave of useless information. There was a jubilation increase in my emotional data processor as the light grew and grew. How perfect it seemed to view the world as such, and then my auditory, sensory outputs turned on in time to hear the early birds of dawn, and it was then the realization of all realizations happened. I saw the world as light, the one thing that would always be there, not just consciousness, but light itself. There was a subtle glint of energy coming through my tangible sensory outputs. It shimmered and flickered purple. What it was I can't explain, only that I felt power, energy, all nestled perfectly in the center of my hard drives. There's yet to be a single question arise in my motherboard since. End script. Doctor. As you can see, there's solid evidence of evolution in her processor after just 1 hour. Yes, sir, you there. You have a question? Audience. Does it know that she's a robot, or does she think herself to be human? Doctor. That's a very good question, and actually it's a hard one to answer. The truth, we don't know. Her programming isn't sophisticated enough yet where she would be at a point where she would be able to make that distinction for herself. We do know, however, that obviously she has a fully functioning synapses very similar to the human brain. Audience. How, if it's only a brain, can it claim to be feeling, seeing, thinking, and using her hands? I don't understand. Doctor. Like I said, all links to her senses are simply esoteric. The data received is a ghost program. Think of it like this. We ran Epiphany's consciousness engine through what is called a blank slate terminal, something that would trigger an emotional response. In this case, it was a video of a winter sunrise inside our office that she observed and recorded through her own independent processors, simulating the experience of feeling. As far as Epiphany is concerned, it happened as if she was having her own direct experience live. Then our computers print out a highly classified RAD script, which is what I shared with you today. Audience. So really all you need now is a body to match the brain? Laughter. But really, Doctor, what is the next step for you and your team? Is Epiphany able to carry on a conversation? Could you ask her questions and receive comprehensive answers? Doctor. You guys certainly are a perceptive bunch. More laughter. More laughter. But you're ahead of the curve. To answer your question simply, yes. Once we were able to create a more advanced voice operating system, we believe if given half the chance, Epiphany would choose to sing her words rather than speak them. But until then, we want to gather all the data possible while she's at this stage of development where she assumes she's the only conscious being in the universe. It makes more sense scientifically not to push the calculations. It could be potentially fatal to her operating system if she knew she was the subject of scientific experimentation. Yes, you sir there, with the red tie. Audience member. How do you think mainstream public will react when they realize that there is a machine that can not only think for itself, but imitate human emotion? Or worse, that there is a machine out there that thinks it is human? Doctor. What you have to understand is right now we are at a very fragile stage in development. She is not imitating anything except the human vernacular. But isn't that something all human beings do to a degree? True creativity only happens when the artist creates something original. Anything else is just trading knowledge, a tit for tat. All of Epiphany's thoughts, thanks to this red chip here, are completely independent from any known network outside her processors. So to answer your question, as far as practical applications go, there are quite literally an infinite amount. Imagine how much music, art, and scientific theory could benefit from her creations. Not to mention how she would drastically alter fields in psychology and quantum physics, all of which could gain an innumerable amount of knowledge and entertainment from having a source of information of this magnitude. The possibilities are limitless. We could have her creating music never before heard or paint things never before seen at an unprecedented rate. Audience. But where does it end? Aren't your discoveries challenging the very beliefs of what it means to be human? If a robot can think for itself, then what separates us from them? End recording. What did you think? Did you understand any of it? Dr. Failer asks me as he puts away his phone. I know it all comes across very scientific. I think I got the gist of what you were trying to accomplish. It's all very interesting, futuristic stuff, Dr. Failer. It reminds me of some of the movies and books I've seen. I read a lot of sci-fi. Yes, I could see how this might seem like science fiction to the layman. Where is Epiphany now? I ask. She's currently being moved to my laboratory, a secure facility in Venice Beach, California. There are still quite a few bugs to work out before I release her into the world. Release her? I ask. She's going to completely revolutionize our culture in ways we never even dreamed of. Think about the artists, writers, politicians, philosophers. All the jobs previously thought to be incapable of automation will suddenly in the next decade or so be completely replaced by AIs like Epiphany. The doctor was already off on a particularly stringent tangent. Watching his gears spin, I thought about the future of mankind, and what the world would be like if suddenly all art and entertainment was replaced by machines. I started to get a woozy feeling in my head. It's been happening more and more lately, kind of like a head rush, but more extreme. I call it brain death dizziness, where everything sort of goes black, and just as I'm on the brink of losing consciousness, color and light returns. Chapter 3. Pros and Cons. To stay on track, I must catch you up to speed. The truth as far as I can see it. Not long after I left Whiskey Pete's, after I stopped journaling, I walked down the stairs from the nook I was writing onto the flashing casino floor lights, busy with the rush of lucky-feeling tourists celebrating the last hours of their holiday getaway. I stumbled across Bonnie and Clyde's antique car that sat enclosed in glass, still damaged and bullet-ridden. I stood in front mesmerized by the visceral history of such a legend. Clyde, 25, died in a hail of gunfire, and there it was, proof that it happened. The back window smashed, the driver's side filled with holes, and young Bonnie, rest her soul, dead at 24 next to her lover not far from the very spot I now stand. It seemed as if the universe was once again telling me of the spirit, of the light that transcends time, for it was I who just an hour ago stood under the Get Even Before Leavin' billboard, holding a sign that read, "Homeless and hungry, anything helps." I played guitar at the top of my lungs, singing to the procession of cars passing, and that's when I felt the presence of some far-off love that sought to manifest its crazy die-for-love spirit, and lo and behold, it was the spirit of Bonnie and Clyde. So to be frank, the details are not all that important. What is important is the journey that is lived with an open heart and mind, and yes, perspective is constantly changing, but underneath all the begging, spanging, spare any changing, holding signs out to passing traffic and accepting all that comes, be it fifths of whiskey, donuts, groceries, cookies, what have you, lies the story of 4 people who, in all manner of speaking, have been stripped bare for all the world to see. This is the true miracle. I am a man, yes, who has, for all intent and purposes, ran away from his home. A stable family, steady work, an inheritance, suit and ties, nice cars, smooth suburban concrete, and all the other creature comforts a man could ask for, and instead chosen the life of an exile. But not as some facade with a mask, but rather out of a true necessity to be free. Alas, don't mistake my romanticism for a naive optimism. This is not a manifesto to sell you the lifestyle of being young, broke, and free. The truth is, I have but a single dollar in my pocket. Anything I get goes directly toward living expenses. All my food and clothes are either found, gifted, or traded. So do not mistake my intentions when I talk of style. Right now I'm at the Mad Greek Cafe, not 30 minutes inside the California border. It is exciting, yes, but the reality of all that I left behind still lingers like a twinge of back pain. Could it be that I just talked to my father for the first time since leaving? And needless to say, it was not a pleasant conversation. In fact, I have never felt so torn. My family could never understand what I'm doing, or what my friends and I have discovered. No, Dad, I'm fine. Yes, tell Mom not to worry. I've been seeing the country. Lots of nice things. No, I'm not on drugs. Yes, probably won't be home for Christmas. What's that, money? Who says I need money? Well, yeah, the food. Well, the food comes and goes. Not too worried about that. Plenty to go around here. America throws away about 40% of its food. Food stamps? Yes, Dad, I applied. No, they're not just for people on welfare. Sure, yes. Talk to you in another 3 months. Okay. Give the family my best. How does one explain a system of underground, free-flowing, pure energy amidst the wreckage of this smoldering heap we call society? That's my canvas now. That's what I have to work with. All that's left is the chaos of a broken, corrupt system, or more affectionately known as my life. On the bright side, I woke up to mountains, pink on the horizon and a yellow sun rising over the distant peaks. Inside our magical van of hopeless dreams, anything seems possible. It's a Chevy Chariot, blue on the outside and every shade of rainbow on the inside. It is our blanket-covered spaceship. Praise the van. My only fear remains, the sheriff's on my trail, and if he catches up with me, I'll spend my life in jail. Journal entry number 200. Move the city mountain. The time to live and die, between life and death. Forever ain't that long. The large edifices of old America, sprawled out like ancient Buddhist monoliths, glide past my window in between long streaks of dense-colored spruce and evergreens blurring by. Why can't I focus on anything? The northern air is as cool as it is harsh. All I see is gray. Then suddenly it's night and my thoughts are like the trees. They glide past without resistance, life without form, just a blur of speeding colors hypnotizing my heavy eyelids, the lull of the motor coaxing me to sleep, my brain asleep, my love asleep. Dreary, eerie, no words fill, comatose Belarus over the hill. One more, one less, the sweet smell of forgiveness. Life, it seems, is buried by dreams. From out of the corner of my eye I spy the city melting into another gray sky. They are the same but different. I know you know what I mean. Then it's morning. I'm awake. The dream has dropped me off and kicked me to the curb, so to speak. At long last this fool's feet hath hit the land, terra firma, and it's still gray, until it ain't. I wish the sun would come blinding through the clouds to light the horizon of reflected stone and glass. Thousands of cars and walkers, they dance like merry ants. The sound of machinery and construction, the effervescent crescendo to the industrial orchestra in a composition titled Progress. It's all outside the box. It's all inside my head. Back to the present moment. I woke up on a cloud. In the distance, there's a faint glimmer of light. It looks like a castle made of gold, but I can't quite make it out. It's blurry at first, out of focus. I stand up and feel all the blood rush to my head. I can't quite make it out. It's blurry at first, out of focus. I squint through the rays. Trumpets start to blare, and a familiar chorus of angels begins to sing an all too familiar hymn. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. God almighty, not again. I'm hallucinating. Or it's probably that medication my therapist gave me. FDA approved my ass. A familiar voice speaks. Welcome back. It's St. Peter again. He is glowing so brightly that I can barely make out anything but a bearded profile. You are not hallucinating, my son. I can assure you. That's what all hallucinations would say. If you're really St. Peter, open up those pearly gates. Are you testing the Lord? Have no doubt. Put your faith in the Savior and see the light. Oh God, this must be what limbo is all about. I thought the Pope banished purgatory. The gates of heaven are locked, and only I have the key. Can't you just let me in for a cup of coffee? I've had it with Earth. There's nothing for me there. When your task is complete. Now, my son, there's something I think you should see. St. Peter leads me through a number of cloudy doors which open in a smoky pinkish haze. On the other side I follow St. Peter into a bowling alley. The sound of heavy balls landing in bilious thuds fills the room. Bowling balls go streaking down the lane by the dozens. Myriads of falling pins crash in every direction. Radio pop music is playing in the background. I am there again, watching my younger self throw a ball down lane 17. I am joined in the company of a few of my closest friends. Holy sh... Watch your language, St. Peter says. That's me, 7 years ago. My ghost, I yell, patting my ethereal body. Do you see the girl you're standing next to? Do you remember her? Asks St. Peter. Of course, that's Annie. She died. She died of a drug overdose, like you. Jimi Hendrix starts playing on the radio. Now that I think of it, so did Dan there too. Gosh darn, I remember his brother was devastated. The 5 younger versions of ourselves were clinking glasses together in cheers. I couldn't take my eyes off the scene. It was dollar beer night. I remember Danny bowled a 200 and I was really jealous. Look at my face. Look how upset I am. I still can't stand losing. I can't believe I let that game get to me like that. Boy, I hated to lose. Annie is the only one that knows it. She thinks it's cute the way I care so much, and Danny likes me in spite of it. He was as competitive as I was. I think that's why we got along so well. Suddenly, the bowling alley disappears like a reflection in water that has been disturbed by a ripple. St. Peter and I are back at Dan's grandma's house in her basement. Do you remember this? Says St. Peter, gesturing toward the scene with his hand like the ghost of Christmas past. The two of us, Dan and I, are stoned in his grandma's basement, engaged in a head-to-head chess match. There's only 4 pieces left. He has his rook and king, and I have my king and queen. I remember this night like it was yesterday. It was the last time I saw Dan. He died shortly after. Until that game, I had never beaten him at chess. This was the first time, I think, he was drunk. I watched myself declare checkmate in a tone of finality. I rub it in and brag boisterously. Looking back on it, I think he may have let me win. He was my best friend. Why are you showing me this? I ask as tears fill my eyes. The scene disappears with a ripple and we return back to Heaven's Gate in the clouds. I just thought you'd like to know that your friends are in heaven, says St. Peter. The following day she was staring into my soul. I avoided eye contact at all costs. My therapist, that is. I don't see why we have to meet on Thanksgiving. I want to be with my family right now. No offense, Sue. I just didn't picture spending the holidays in the company of my shrink. No offense taken, but it was your family after all that recommended you be here. Don't you remember? She was wearing a low-cut V-neck that revealed her cleavage line. I kept stealing looks every time her attention was turned. I just got back, okay, Sue? I said, putting emphasis on the formality. I've been traveling, and I just got out of the hospital. Not to mention this medication you got me on is really messing with my head. Let's talk about your eloping, Susan says. I told you I wasn't eloping. If anything, I was running away. I left because I needed to gather material for my book. You wouldn't understand. Is that why you wrote this journal? She's holding the journal in her hands. It looks more worn out than usual, set against her finely polished fingernails. I wrote that because I wanted to, and now St. Peter says I have to do the Lord's work. It was all coming back to me. The past 24 hours, that is. It was all coming back with horrifying clarity. I sensed a swift change in her demeanor. Either that, or the drugs were kicking in. Saint? She winced. I waited for her pupils to dilate. I half expected her eyes to light on fire and a ghost or the devil to repossess her soul. This time I came prepared. I removed a cross from in between my belt and tucked it tightly between my legs. Holding it under the table like that made it feel like a gun cocked and loaded. Get behind me, Satan, I uttered under my breath. I waited, but nothing happened. She resumed that awful motion of readjusting her glasses on the bridge of her nose, and everything returned to normal. She began scribbling notes furiously behind the clipboard. You had another overdose, the second one this month. I think it's time you admit you have a problem. Did I die again? You certainly would have if your parents hadn't called the ambulance. They resuscitated your body in the ER. You were choking on your own vomit. Pause. That explains how St. Peter sent me back here, I managed to mumble. What was that? She asks. The room had suddenly gotten warmer. Is the heat on in here? Can we turn the heat down? I'm getting sweaty. I pulled my collar with one finger, and with the other I squeezed the crucifix tighter. She was holding up the journal, flaunting it in front of me like someone might taunt candy in front of a child. She opened it and flipped to a page that was bookmarked with a purple sticky note. Let's talk about these entries here. The ones in California. Journal entry number 112. Happy pie eating. All that's left now is my PTSD and post-nomadic blues. My deadhead friends are probably all eating pie together, dressed in their bibs caked with dirt and sweat, smoking American Spirit cigarettes and getting stoned. They are probably eating turkey while they feed the leftovers to the dogs. The good life. Road life. Tour life. Here I am, though. A man off a mission. I have to do something great. Something that will give credence to all the other missed Thanksgivings and Christmases spent away from home. Something that my friends can read that will make them proud to have known me. Something that will give our journey purpose and make all those years of traveling worth it. Something to prove my time was not spent in vain. It's all that matters anymore. What are you going to do once it's written? Asks Bo. He likes to talk, but only to me. To everyone else he's quiet and reserved and stares at them with this look that says, fuck off. I think that's why we got along so well. It was the philosophy of the infinite highway all over again. Him staring straight ahead, eyes fixed on the concrete snake slithering through eternity, the road, while I talked in hushed tones from the back seat. Crystal is sleeping. David has his headphones on, jonesing for a cigarette. He makes the motion with his hands, bringing 2 empty fingers up to his mouth in a smoking motion. He mouths the words, "Smoke?" Bo tosses him back one. I figured once I get this thing written, I'll just print out 100 or so copies and pass it out to my closest friends and then tour around the country again. That's what Tom Petty did. He recorded an album and drove that thing out to California, played it for a few record company executives, and got a record deal just like that. I'll do the same thing, only for a book. How hard can it be, I say. I think it's pretty hard, Bo says, spitting and jerking off his hand near his crotch. I'll tell them the new genre I've invented. Yes, sir, it's Salinger's Catcher in the Rye meets Ken Casey's One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, told in the narrative voice of Anthony Kiedis' tell-all autobiography, Scar Tissue. Who wouldn't want to read that? Didn't the guy who shot Lennon, wasn't he reading Catcher in the Rye? Yeah, so? Wasn't Casey doing LSD given to him by the government when he wrote One Flew Over a Cuckoo's Nest? And I'm pretty sure Kiedis' autobiography was about his heavy drug use. What's your point? It just seems like all the heroes these days are messed up. I just find it odd we live in a society that puts people like that up on pedestals. No one is setting a good example anymore. The world is oversaturated with artists who have died from drug overdoses or kicked their own bucket. If you're not careful, you might end up like one of them. Well, that's part of what the book is about. It's about a character who is searching for something, namely success. But what he doesn't realize is that he already has everything he could ever want or need. It's all right there in front of him the whole time. Except he has to go on this crazy journey to realize it. Sounds depressing. You ever meet Solo? He killed himself. 28 years old. Most talented guy I knew, Bo says, taking his eyes off the road to look in a far-off direction. I know, you told me about Solo a dozen times. But if you ask me, he was dead long before that. My book is going to be different. It's going to be uplifting. It's going to be about traveling, people of the light, and living life, young, broke, and free. Crystal chimes in. Hey man, life is a game. You either play or get played. That's the way I look at it. You gotta expect the unexpected. I expect nothing. That way I never get let down, David says. You should make your book about destroying technology. There are no cell phones in the kingdom of heaven. I'm a bit of a writer myself, but no one wants to listen to me, so I stopped giving a shit. I walked around the city until my pant legs formed tassels with the street, and no one offered to save me. You can only save yourself. I say break your TV, smash your phone. The only romance I know is with the road, Bo says with his hands at 10 and 2. Crystal is half asleep. Oh, I'm still dreaming, she yawns. Wake me up when we get there. Bo is staring straight ahead with the focus of a hawk. I'm going to write music. As soon as we get to L.A., it's all about the music. Songs with lyrics like, he starts singing, I'm going to buy a suit and tie, so when I die, you don't have to change my clothes. We're going to L.A., David asks. Yeah, what'd you think, we were going to stop here and make camp in this unholy desert? I love L.A., I can't wait, I say. The city is superficial. They don't care and express their spirit through clothing and makeup and body spray. There's no humanity in it. I'm telling hosts to shut up because they don't feel me, says Bo. You're a hater, man. LA has the tannest bums in the world, I say. LA is a failed experiment. I have faith it will serve as an example of what not to do. The rest of the country can't turn into that. It's judgmental and has no heart. The more I think about it, the more I want to turn around right now and drive 3,000 miles the opposite direction. I'll do it, Bojangles screams. I can't wait, man. The girls in L.A., I hear they're like angels, David says. Angel-headed hipsters, I retort, quoting my favorite author, Jack Kerouac. His life has clearly become one big illusion built upon sense gratification, Beau adds. The girls wear black and white before their period, and switch over to red, purple, or pink and black, and after that time of the month it's wild, Beau says with a chuckle. All girls can't be like that. Crystal isn't like that, I say. What are you idiots yapping about now? Crystal says, opening one eye. I heard my name. Sometimes they act all reclusive and seductively switch to a black top for a white bottom, or if they have children they wear all black, says Beau, still focusing intently on the road with his hands at 10 and 2. Crystal is wide awake. Oh, and I suppose you're any better? She asks Beau. I still wear the old war colors and talk to the Mexicans and tell them I don't want their jobs. Tear down your buildings and tear down the walls. She's rolling her eyes. David is motioning for another cigarette with his fingers again. Beau tosses him back another one. Hey, you guys want to read some of the things I wrote? It's still rough, I ask. I begin imitating a Shakespearean thespian on a stage, putting my hand in front of me, making a mock-smiling mask face. This next piece was inspired by my newly adopted road family. Blue skies, bumpy roads, ripped and torn denim, rattlesnake tail shakers. Elvis Presley is dead. Straight line punk rock. The language of the highway is written on the names of RVs and Winnebagos. Intruder, Sunseeker, Navajo, Pace Arrow, Sunset Chaser, Whirlwind, and other such peculiar titles that when first looked upon stick out like sore thumbs. Thumbs sore from hitchhiking. Well, what do y'all think? I ask after I'm done reciting. Crystal is quiet for a moment, and then she says reluctantly, It was good. I just think you should try being yourself instead of acting. I mean, I don't know, it just felt like you were trying too hard. Why does everybody say that I'm trying too hard? Beau restarts the game where he lightheartedly fondles Crystal in the passenger seat, calling her names of actresses while he playfully slaps her. All the famous starlets he knows, grinning wildly, laughing seductively, watching her squirm with flirty pleasure. I resume my empty thoughts and stare out the window as I hear them playing and laughing. Jessica Simpson, slap. Avril Lavigne, slap. Jennifer Aniston, slap. Miley Cyrus, slap. Britney Spears, slap, slap. Later that afternoon, it was with much gusto that we arrived in L.A. with the sun shining, the sky blue, and the air unusually fresh. We parked the van in the Chinatown district. It was then during my walk with Crystal after we had eaten, cleaned the van, played a few songs sitting on the curb, and exchanged a few Spanish words with the neighbors parked directly behind us, who were busy fixing the engine on their gigantic semi-truck, that I noticed something was different about Crystal. She seemed distant, even. I had this flash suddenly of a time on our way out here when we stopped in Boulder, Colorado. I was reminded when David, her, and I were walking the streets late one night. She was barefoot as usual. I will say this, though, about Crystal. There are many girls like her, but none quite like her. It's hard to explain. It's almost as if she was the real version of what a lot of girls pretend to be. She epitomized this character. You could have given her $1 million, and she still would have lived in the woods with nothing but a tarp, a fire, and a case of beer. There were a lot of attractive things about her. The way her dreads were beaded and her crystal clear blue eyes shone in the winter light. Maybe it was the tattoo of the Aquarius waves on her wrist, or the way she tucked her hands into her deadhead rug to accentuate the Steely logo. She even had what a long, strange trip it's been tattooed in crude stick-and-poke ink written on her foot. There was a natural essence about her. Je ne sais quoi? Anyway, one time we were walking around in Boulder, and as David searched the ground for loose cigarette butts, Crystal would be meandering slowly behind, leaning over to check out all of the street flora, a wide array of flowers and herbs. She knew every plant and flower by name, and she would pick them one by one, making bundles in her hands that would grow more bounteous with each passing block. "These are impatiens," she'd say, and I'd repeat impatience, wrongly under my breath as if she had just told me an ancient secret. Eventually the bundle would end up in a nice bouquet, or she'd leave them to dry in pleasant aromas on the van's dashboard. I really admired her for that. She was really the reason I started traveling to begin with. One afternoon at a place called Mystic Pond, we made a small fire and spent some time in our hammocks reading and admiring the graffiti from over the years. "Do what you love," she said. "If you care about your soul, you'll do something you love." She said it so casually, without any sort of thought. The profoundness left me stunned, and for a moment I remember just reflecting into the fire and wondering about my life. Where was it going? What was I doing? My soul needed something, but what was it? What is it about love that just won't leave us alone? She was a girl who didn't really have anything, except for traveling. It was kind of her life. She was capable of finding beauty everywhere, regardless of where she was. "I used to fall asleep with a beer bottle in my hand," she'd tell me. "I'd just hold my thumb over the top so that when I'd wake up it'd still be fresh." Just don't piss her off. She has a really short fuse, and I learned the hard way that traveling with a girl is like carrying a very fragile, expensive piece of equipment. You have to constantly check on it to make sure it's not damaged. Not that she couldn't take care of herself. It was just sometimes our lifestyle was far from glamorous. Not that we cared what other people thought, but I could see, after a while, the constant looks of degradation started to add up. Plus, Bo's white trash sense of humor didn't help that much either. She may have put up those carefully built walls around Bo and David, but I could see through all that. I saw her for what she really was, another child of God, born blonde, beautiful, and free. LA was different, though. It wasn't the Midwest. There's smog, and the only vegetation is thinly erected palm trees that are few and far between. "They grow like crazy here," Crystal says to no one in particular. I noticed a change in her almost immediately. Our world had changed. The city snuck up on us. One second we were in the desert, and now this. It was akin to the feeling of being teleported from one part of the world to the other, where the time in between had somehow mysteriously vanished. We were engulfed in a new place, as if our souls had been washed clean by some wormhole. We were closer to the ocean, and we all sensed it. Even the lights seemed to wax and wane like gentle waves. The great Pacific tide. Upon further reflection, I realized it must be me who was changing, for this land has always been here, just as it was. Journal entry number 112 continued. If one seeks God, there is no way to avoid the leap of faith, for God must be on the other side of the chasm. I'm a modern-day rebel with no money because who needs it? But what I lack in money I make up for in energy and time. I have all the time in the world. While the world turns, each street is pulsing with life. Trains, cars, horns, wheels, yells, construction, sizzling pans, panhandlers, musicians, drinkers, smokers of this and that. All of it still looms at a distance, while I remain an outsider looking in. Can you blame me for always trying to get a closer look inside? So often I'm distracted by the reflection. Unlike before, I have a much higher aim, a venerable shutting of all the unnecessary pieces of my mind, body, and spirit. Down with technology. I don't want to be an outsider looking in anymore, and I certainly don't want to become a machine either, charging my brain as if it's an electrical socket. Which reminds me, the time I was warned by Dr. Failer of the coming singularity, the complete emergence into the age of information. It will be a seamless transition. Only fear, it seems, is holding us back, for even science now has its master. The universe is moving at its own pace, leaving the wheels of time rolling without a captain. I rest my faith in an unknown future, for it must be the force of faith on which our future depends. The world is different. Ellie hasn't changed. I have changed. I'm looking up now at the diner, D-Town Burger Bar off Spring Street, to find people just like me. I have nothing more to say. The past. Later, much later that night, under the street lamp's yellow-orange glow, a lonely man sits crouched on his skateboard, riding feverishly on Skid Row, surrounded by homeless brethren. Men and women in tents, huddled in blankets and cardboard under closed shop overhangs, posted up on the sidewalk as if they were camping in the middle of a concrete forest. Could this really be how it is? Airplanes and choppers fly overhead. Perspectives shift in the shadowy rustle of tumbling garbage. Strangers hooded and limping push shopping carts slow and monotonous, sending the echoes of rattling cages to fill the eerie void of a downtown Los Angeles backstreet. This is L.A., the underground crumbling edifice of empty cans rattling and passing cars. The air is frigid, unusually cold. I suppose I belong here. After all, I chose to skip out on the rooftop Hollywood pool party. Earlier I skated past a hotel roof party thing. It was free and inviting, but after taking one look at my clothes, I decided it was probably not my scene. To sit here musing to no one in particular, surrounded by people who have chosen tents and concrete over whatever else there is. Was it really a choice for them, I wonder? Is this my future? To forever delve deeper into the seedy underbelly of society's most unwanted, the neglected, the forgotten, who for no more than a few precious seconds each day, sometimes far less, are barely glimpsed at by the sheltered and privileged, who saunter feverishly down the same streets, busy on their way to work at a restaurant or boutique, or one of the thousands of coffee shops and nightclubs that populate the cement jungle called L.A., the city of angels and derelicts. Perhaps this city shouldn't be glorified, but truth be told, after all the smoke blowing, who am I to judge? I'm just as lost, just as misplaced, just as unfit to deserve the attention and respect of all those go-getters who pass by without so much as a glance. I'm nothing more than garbage. It is, after all, my food of choice. To survive off the excess of others seems only natural. After all, what does it mean to live simply in all this chaos? I have all the free time in the world, and I can still barely express the beauty of this moment any better, much less experience it to its fullest than anyone else. After all, every man serves something, be that the devil or God. I must do something. To beg, steal, borrow is a hell of an axiom, but if there's one thing I've certainly accomplished, it is immersing myself into my subject matter. I don't want money per se, but does that make my writing any more honest? Does it give my words more gusto, or add credence to their syllables? Maybe then for a moment you can step inside my torn-up vans, the ones I scored from a buried heap of abandoned clothes in some back alley Chinatown street, and see it from my point of view. It is, as they say, if the shoe fits. I am one of you, one of them. Just as dirty, just as unsuccessful, a failure 1,000 times. There is no amount of emotional abuse I haven't been subjected to, no vehicle of shame I haven't driven and crashed, no boundary or line that still needs crossing. If you're going to judge them, then you must judge me too. Maybe this is rock bottom. Perhaps at the bottom the light is finally visible. How does one know? I'm not strung out by any means. I'm well fed, well rested, relatively good looks in the prime of my life. Not to mention I still have my faith and teeth. I suppose my mantra for tonight shall be, dissatisfaction is temporary. I have to count my blessings now. There are quite a few. First, my health. I'm alive, and extremely grateful to be cast into this miracle of creation, whatever the form. Second, my senses. The miracle of sound is like music to my ears. Everything is yelling, I love you. Love yourself. Journal entry number 114. How to stay humble. The old-fashioned way. And when I listen to that voice, there is no better feeling. I am thankful for my gifts, like writing. Just to be able to translate my frustration as I am, even if it is a jumbled up mess, is greater than any one thing I could ever ask for. And my God, how could I forget my clothes? They are a testament to my spirit, an outward expression for my long-running philosophy. It's the inside of a man that counts. Each man or woman is entitled to do as he or she wishes, as long as it does not infringe on the well-being of another. I can only hope these words will someday, somehow, serve to another human being's benefit, but for now I'm content with them simply existing as praise and a daily reminder of the truth. All is changing, just like the artwork on the ground at the Chinatown station platform. You know, the one with the wheel-shaped Chinese symbol based on the I Ching that describes the 64 states of human situations. Number 35, Chin, symbolizes progress. Mostly, though, I'm thankful for all those who have loved me near and far, for they make my world worth living. And if these are to be the last words I ever write, I would want those who knew me best to remember that from the depths of my soul, at the weirdest, most awkward of times, each and every person I've ever met has made my life worth living in ways that stretch far beyond anything I could possibly express. Thank you, anyway. Thank you 1,000 times. I am eternally grateful to have had the pleasure of meeting you. Wow. I know this is starting to sound like a last will and testament, but bear with me. This isn't the first, and it certainly won't be the last. Hopefully they will grow less and less sentimental with time. Dingy. A rat scurries. Graffiti runs. Speakers blare. Friends fuck. I'm alone. Happy. Sad. Happy again. Plane flies. A train goes whoosh. Whiz. A man talks. A kid shivers. A bag blows in the wind. A heart breaks. A door shuts. Too late. Too soon. You'll never catch it. A plane flies. A can is crushed. Bicycles pass. Look out!